Good evening, I'm Mike Knetter, and welcome to the UW Now Livestream series, where we bring you experts from the UW community to talk about timely and important topics. With the new academic year and athletic season right around the corner, many of you are wondering what's the best way for us to return to campus and to return to Camp Randall. What protocols are envisioned for classes and events? What contingency plans are in effect if we have new outbreaks of COVID or new variants? Will local public health policies affect our return to campus or Camp Randall? And then what about the NC2A policies on name, image, and likeness, or the conference realignment that we've been reading about? Where does college athletics go from here? Well, as usual, we've got the experts, and tonight's show features Chancellor Blank and our new athletic director, Chris McIntosh. I want to thank you both for joining us. I know how busy it is as we approach a new academic year and a new sports season, and appreciate you taking the time to share your thoughts with our audience. Chancellor, you won the toss and you elected to take the ball. So I'm going to introduce you first. Chancellor's been at the helm of UW-Madison, as you all know, since 2013. She is an internationally acclaimed labor and public policy economist who has also worked in 3 different presidential administrations. Most recently, Chancellor Blank served as Deputy Secretary and Acting Secretary of Commerce under President Obama. She's also served on the faculty at the University of Michigan, where she was the Dean of the Gerald Ford School of Public Policy, and she's been on the faculty at Northwestern and Princeton University. Chancellor, thank you. I know it is a very busy time in an already incredibly busy job, but it's great to have you back on the show with us to share your thoughts about the challenges and opportunities for the year ahead and maybe the year gone by. Thanks for being here, Becky.
Well, thank you, Mike. It's always great to be on the Mike Knetter show here. I'm always honored to be asked. And it's an honor as well to be on here with our new AD, Chris McIntosh, who you'll enjoy hearing from. I want to say just a few things about what we're planning here for the fall, and then I'll open it up to Q&A and anything you want to ask me. Let me start by thanking all of the alums who really stepped up this past year when we faced a global pandemic, which in turn created a financial crisis and a significant share of students who needed extra financial help. And I know a lot of you helped contribute to some of that support, so thank you for that. We were, if you'd asked me 3 months ago, going to be looking forward to a pretty normal semester, but things don't always turn out quite as you expect. And while things I hope will be more like 2019 than not, we have put in place a whole bunch of additional health protocols that, we weren't planning on 3 months ago as the Delta variant spreads. So our faculty and our staff adapted very quickly to the challenges of the last 18 months. Our students were able to learn successfully in a remote or a hybrid situation. But we all believe that we best fulfill our mission when we are in person, in the research labs, with students face to face. And our students, as well as many of our faculty, are really eager to see that happen. We expect that more than 90% of our courses will be delivered in person this semester. And our employees are largely back on campus at this point, doing the important work that makes us a great university. We're going to have 46,000 students on campus in another 2 weeks, and we need the support and the staff that are going to help serve them. Of course, I should also note, within the next week and a half, we're looking forward to having fans back in the stands at Camp Randall, where it's been way too long since that last happened. We are fortunate this fall to have a safe and effective vaccine available, and our campus has overwhelmingly chosen to get vaccinated. We've strongly encouraged vaccination. We've made it available free to all employees and students who want it, including a good number of our community members who were not on campus. At present, 90% of our employees are vaccinated. The number goes up to 96% among our faculty. Our student number is currently at 82%, but that's still an undercount because we're still getting information in from students. We expect in the dorms that we're going to be over 90% vaccinated. But it's become clear that that alone is not enough right now. So we have reinitiated an indoor mask mandate on campus, consistent with Dane County. Here, we're in Dane County, and Dane County also has an indoor mask mandate in place right now. This applies to our athletic events as well, and for the time being, Masks will be required at any indoor spectator athletic event, but we're watching these policies and we'll revisit them as warranted. We are also requiring mandatory weekly testing for any student or employee who is not fully vaccinated. And that's obviously to protect the campus, to catch infections as they occur, and to try to make sure we keep infection rates as low as possible. As we did last year, we'll be tracking infections on campus and in the community. We'll be consulting our campus public health experts, and we have some great faculty and staff who work at both the state and the national level, as well as doing their own research and teaching here on campus. If circumstances change, our policies will change with them. Now, I'm just going to be blunt. We expect to see an increase in cases as we welcome a lot of students back to Madison. Some of these will be among vaccinated people because the Delta variant is more contagious, and there are some breakthrough cases that we all know about. But vaccinated individuals are typically very well protected against serious illness, and they appear less likely to transmit the virus as well. We believe, based on what we know right now, that the measures we have taken, combined with high vaccination rates, will, and I should say they're high in the community around us as well, will keep infections on our campus relatively low. Research from the fall of 2020 found that people who contracted COVID on our campus tended to be engaged in high-risk behaviors off campus, lots of gatherings at parties or in bars. It was not the result of people working in research labs or in classrooms. And we're trying to message that to our students as well. So while we expect to return to a somewhat more normal fall semester, we are taking steps to continue to protect each other, particularly while transmission rates remain high. We've encouraged our instructors to provide flexibility and support to students who need to isolate or quarantine, and to provide flexibility as well to instructors who might need to do the same. And we're continuing to monitor developments, look at the data, talk to our public health people, and we are particularly concerned with integrating our international students back to campus. Many of them couldn't come last year, and many more of them will be on campus this fall, and we want to make sure they have a good experience too. Now, that pandemic created some serious financial problems for the university. Those of you who've listened to me talk at earlier transmissions like this know that. Last year, when we closed the year out, it turned out that we were down about $226 million from what we expected in our budget. And that's due to a whole host of things, either because revenues we were expecting didn't come in. A lot of students didn't stay in the dorms, for instance, or there were health-related expenses we hadn't budgeted for. Now, our original estimates were that we were going to be down 320. So when I say 226, that sounds great. But when I say only down $226 million, that was a huge hit to the campus. And our auxiliaries were particularly hard hit. Athletics, housing, the union, they all took some significant losses. The state also took back some money it had allocated to us, though it gave us about half of them back at the end of this past fiscal year. But the good news here is we have entirely offset those losses by the measures we took last year. We did this through employee furloughs, through budget cuts, through reducing spending over the year, and it was very helpful that we got some federal dollars. We got about $56 million from the federal government to help offset costs. Now, that's not 226, but that's a fourth of our costs were offset by federal funding. And I deeply appreciate that assistance. So we're moving forward with the semester, and I look forward to seeing what happens. I think we're in as good shape as we can be, but there's still a lot of uncertainty out there. Let me end with just a couple of pieces of good news that you want to know about. I'm always pleased with the good news that comes into UW. This last week, we got word that we've moved up in the world rankings of research universities. That's always good to know. And our research remains very strong. In fact, our research dollars are way up this last year, which the opposite of what I expected when we went into this pandemic. Turns out a lot of our faculty wrote grant proposals and got to work, and we brought in more dollars than we expected. Our student demand is also extremely high. Our applications were up 17%. We had a record-setting number of applications, and we thought maybe this is a lot of students who are applying to more schools than usual because they don't have much to do this fall. So we actually were expecting we might have a lower acceptance rate than usual, but it turned out that that didn't happen. And we actually ended up with a larger class than we expected. if people were choosing between schools, we seem to win the coin toss in most of those cases. So we will end up with a bigger class. Our dorms will be a little more crowded, and that's created some challenges. We have added classes, sections to freshman classes. We've expanded our advising group. But all in all, this is a really good problem to have after the pandemic, to have more people wanting to come than we actually anticipated. And campus will be as fully open as possible. The Union is open. The new Students Rec Center, the NIC, is open. The Chazen Art Museum is fully open. And if you come to Madison, you can visit all of those places. And as Chris will tell you, our athletic events are back to normal as well. I'm looking forward to the first football game on the Saturday before Labor Day. And for those of you in the Chicago area, I'm really looking forward to us meeting Notre Dame in Soldiers Field on September 25th. That's going to be a great competition. And our women's volleyball is back strong, and I'm hoping they get to the NCAA final rounds again this year. So fall sports are looking exciting. So Chris is going to tell you a whole lot more about that, but let me stop here and ask for questions.
Great. Thank you, Chancellor. If you don't mind, I'll open with a couple that I was wondering about as you were talking. You talked about that extraordinary incoming class we have. Not only did we have record applications, I think, as you noted, it's a little different environment for our admissions team to guess at the yield rates. How big will the freshman class be at this point? What do we know about that?
We're expecting a freshman class that's around between 8,100 and 8,200. And we were aiming for about 76 or 7,700. So that is a substantially larger class than expected. And we want to make sure that they have a great experience. So we're doing everything we can to get ready for that.
Terrific. And how about the recruitment of faculty during the COVID year? And, with everything being remote, were we able to hire new faculty? And how are you feeling about that?
Yeah, hiring was harder because people couldn't come to campus. Doing remote interviews is just a little odd at times. But we ended up hiring more faculty than I expected. We're up 80 faculty, new faculty coming to campus. That compares to the previous year where we hit an all-time high of 140 new faculty. So, we're a little below our average, but it was still a pretty strong year. And, those who were hiring had a really good hiring year because there were lots of schools because of financial troubles that weren't in the market. So we've got some really first-rate faculty arriving.
And of course, you and I would know this, and probably not all of our viewers do, but usually the peak recruiting period for faculty is months like January, February, and maybe it's better that we were remote. Who knows? It's not the best time to visit Madison always. Yeah. So, yeah. And how about, in this low interest rate environment, it seems like it'd be a good time to launch a lot of facility projects. What are your thoughts about how the capital budget went down, and any concerns going forward that we need to all band together as alums and work on there?
So this was a state budget year. Every 2 years, Wisconsin establishes a 2-year budget. And we didn't get any new general purpose funding, which I was very disappointed at, to be honest. It was a pretty good year for the state financially. We did get approval for 2% raises for all of our faculty and staff for each of the next 2 years, and that's good news. In the capital budget front, we got a new classroom office building in letters and science, which we badly need. Those of you who've been in the humanities building know that that building has to get emptied and closed. It's in really bad shape, and this is the next step in that. So our history department and a number of other really good departments are going to be there, plus the opportunity to have really modern, up-to-date classrooms, which the humanities building does not. So I'm excited about that and really pleased the legislature approved that. We were, however, disappointed that the legislature did not approve the second building we were trying for, which is a new building on the engineering campus. This building would have allowed us to expand our undergraduate engineering class by 1,000 students. We have seemingly unlimited demand for our engineering graduates. This would be good for the state. It would be good for the region. And I'm disappointed we didn't get that building, but I hope we can keep fighting and get funding for that in the next biennium.
It sure would help if we had bonding authority. I know you would have gone to the capital markets and funded that project in a heartbeat, because we've got students as far as the eye can see ready to do that.
As many on this call have heard me say before, every other university in the country is able to have some control over its buildings because it has bonding authority when it really needs to do maintenance or building construction. And we're constrained by the state in ways no one else is constrained, and it is causing us serious problems.
Couple questions from the audience about back to school policies. How do our policies compare with other UW system schools? William Schmitz asks. And then Jim Kennedy wonders, how do they compare with the rest of the Big Ten? And I suppose that's, some of the masking protocols or vaccination requirements, which I think are present on some campuses. What do we know about that?
So most of the system schools have exactly the same protocols that we have at this point: mandatory indoor masking and a mandatory testing for those who are unvaccinated. I think there are a few schools and counties that haven't seen as much of an uptick in infections that haven't implemented the testing requirement yet, but we'll see if that comes. If you compare us to our Big Ten and other peers, many of those schools have implemented a vaccine requirement, and that is extremely difficult in this state. I should say that decision is not up to me. That is a decision by the president and the Board of Regents for the entire system. And at this point, it just does not seem feasible in the political environment to implement a vaccine mandate. I'm sorry about that. On the other hand, our very high vaccination rates don't put us very far off where we would be with a vaccine environment and the allowability of some people to get exemptions.
And how about the comparisons with the Big Ten? Can you say any more about that? Who has a vaccine requirement, and are those really effective or do they have enough loopholes that it really doesn't matter?
Yeah, we're going to find out, right? I just don't know until school starts and we see what happens in infections on different campuses. I think the majority of the Big Ten at this point has a vaccine mandate. Those who don't, with one exception, have masking and testing requirements similar to ours. So, we'll see how this goes as we compare schools.
So if infections begin to taper off as fall goes on, as you noted, we might have a bit of a surge right when everybody comes back to campus and people are gathering for the first time, but with the high vax rates, probably not too bad. When we get past that, is there a scenario where we can, for vaccinated people, say it's okay to be in the presence of other vaccinated people indoors without a mask?
Yeah, we're going to follow this quite closely. As you know, Dane County right now has a mandatory indoor mask mandate. So we're acting consistent with Dane County, and that's probably what we need to be doing. And particularly as students, we're going to bring 46,000 people back to campus. Some of them are already here, but from all over the world. And being cautious in these first few weeks is very much the right thing to do to make sure that people are safe and infections don't spread too wildly. I very much hope if the infection numbers fall off in Dane County, if we have low infections on our campus, we will revisit these policies. But if things go the other way, we'll potentially strengthen them. It's really going to depend on how this infection stuff evolves in the next month or two. We're still in a place of real uncertainty.
Question from Sarah, wondering, what do you attribute the improvement in our research rankings to? Is there something that you would point to that you think has moved the meter on that in the last few years? I know it's a big ship. It takes a long time to turn. And sometimes, the rankings, it's more about what's happening elsewhere than even what's happening at Wisconsin. But what's been our comparative advantage lately?
Well, we have a great group of faculty, and we stuttered a little on research about 8 to 9 years ago. We lost some good faculty because of this big debate about tenure that the legislature initiated. But we've now come back strong. Some of this is that we've done really good hiring of top-rated faculty who are coming in, bringing their research projects with them and initiating new research projects. Some of this is our growth in our research spending. I think last year it grew by 6 to 7%. This past fiscal year, it grew by 10%. Really substantial growth in research. We've got some great junior hiring we've done, and as those people grow into more senior positions, they initiate more research projects and are more successful with them. So, we're just on a forward momentum roll here. And there's particularly some big areas where we are very, very strong and where there's federal dollars out there. Not the least of which I might note were the dollars put out for COVID. We got almost $100 million of COVID-related research in this last year by faculty who moved very fast and nimbly to grab some of that money and diverted their research efforts to do something that was important for current health issues.
I'm glad we're only diverting research efforts, not the dollars themselves. Okay.
No. But we got more. We got new dollars for that.
Correct. No, and I'm joking, of course. I mean, I know a lot of our faculty did shift from similar or related topics to research right in the sweet spot of COVID. Jerry wonders, how do you reconcile the fact that now this is Jerry speaking, we've got a suboptimal student experience because of COVID, yet our applications and admission numbers are at record highs. And I guess, again, that's competition with other institutions. Did we handle things better than others last year, and that's attracted more students to Wisconsin? What do you think?
So, I do think we handled things quite well last year. As many of you know, throughout the winter semester, our infection rates were below 1%, and we were testing everyone who was on campus once a week if you're an employee, twice a week if you were a student. And that just really kept the campus safe and infections under control at a time before the vaccines became widely available. I heard from a number of parents, and of course I remember these comments perhaps more than the complaints, who said they had children at multiple schools, and they really appreciated the level of communication that we were doing with people. And in a world of uncertainty, when folks don't quite know what's happening next, telling people what you're doing, why you're doing it, what you're thinking about really matters. And I think we did pretty well last year. I don't think that's the main reason for increases in most high school students are not comparing COVID infection numbers across campuses as they're applying to schools. I think it's just we have a great undergraduate experience. Our graduation rates have grown. Our debt levels have fallen. Our time to graduation has fallen. Our reputation is steadily rising in terms of our educational experiences that we provide to students. And, we've got a great student life, everything from sports to that wonderful terrace and lakefront property. So, students, once they start looking at us, get really attracted. And you can see this as our number of applications have gone up and as our, acceptance and interest has gone up. We're winning competitions with some other schools that we used to be losing. And it's because we're a better school now than we were even 10 years ago.
Please stop, Chancellor. I feel bad about going to Eau Claire now. Anyway, an interesting public policy. I mean, that I had a great experience too. But,
yeah, you did.
I don't know why I didn't go to Madison, but we'll move on. A public policy scholar wonders why it is that state law lets the technical colleges go to the capital markets for building projects. For example, Madison Area Technical College has done that. Why can they do that and the UW system schools can't do that?
This is just crazy. I don't have the answer to why that's true. Madison Area Technical College, they're several miles away, built a new building. They went and got bonding for it. They started it without any approvals of any sort from the state, finished it within a year and a half. They're holding classes in it. It takes me 3 years just to get state approval to think about doing this. And then it costs me a whole lot of money, and I'm not in charge of the construction, and it takes a lot of time. It is a crazy system that is wasting state money. It's wasting donor money, and it's really hurting our whole capital infrastructure on campus. We've tried to make this argument. It requires both the governor to back us as well as both houses of the state legislature. And we're going to keep working at that because, it's really important that we are able to run a modern financial system with, modern capital controls. And we just don't have that right now.
Yeah, it's that is really unfortunate. And of course,
if Madison Technical College can handle bonding, I can handle bonding at Madison. It really makes me mad when legislators tell me that.
Yeah, no, I certainly understand that. And, it doesn't seem like anything that makes sense rationally, but we're in a world right now where it's hard to get bipartisan support for anything, it seems. Question from Jennifer Tillis. What are the protocols and plans for care if a student gets sick due to COVID? I know last year we had some COVID dorms that people would get moved to and other places people would go if they had exposures. What's the plan?
Yeah, so very similar to last year. If you're a student who lives off campus and you get a COVID positive test, you're expected to isolate in your place of residence. And our experience was about 50% of those students were from Wisconsin, and if they went home. They'd rather have mom take care of them than be, than their roommate. And that's okay, but and we do monitor that and try to stay in touch. Our student services people call folks on a regular basis who've tested positive and check in with them. If you're in the dorms, of course, we want you out of your roommate situation and off the floor. Last year, we used empty dorm space. We don't have any empty dorm space this year because of our large class, but we do have some empty spaces over in university apartments by Eagle Heights. Because not all our international students have gotten here. So we've taken some clusters of apartments that have separate entrances and, are sort of separately located, and we'll be using them as isolation space. If for any reason that's not enough, we do have some pending contracts with a number of hotels that we can pick up if we do need additional isolation rooms. And then again, for those students, we do check in with them very regularly, if not every day.
Chancellor, what do you think is the most exciting thing we're working on programmatically on the campus that's going to change the educational environment for students?
That's a great question. My bet on that one is our new School of Computer Data and Information Science, which we put together between the Computer Data School program, the Statistics program, and our Information School, which is the old library school. And this is a group of people who because of the beginning together of those different departments, span everything from software and technical issues all the way to human interactions with machines and ethical questions around some of the uses of technologies and computer software. And it's a great group of people. We've given them almost unlimited hiring authority because our computer science majors are now our largest major on campus. More than 2,000 students are majoring in computer science. Last fall, in the middle of a pandemic, we opened a new major called data science, and we now have over 600 students majoring in that. It's one of our larger majors. So we're basically trying to create a broad department here that asks and answers and does research on a whole set of questions relating to these new technologies, both human-facing as well as the more technical questions. We want to serve our growing group of students who are majoring in this area, but I also need this group to serve all the students who are not computer and data science majors, but who need some of this information. So we've also had an explosion in the number of students who want to take courses there, even though they aren't majoring there. So, we get as many faculty as we can hire. We're hiring at this point into this place. And the goal of this unit is not just to serve itself, its faculty and its majors, but to serve the entire university community. There is no discipline right now that does not touch computer and data science. And we need a really strong central group that both on the research front and the reputational front and the educational front. And I'm very excited, while it creates challenges to have this explosion of interest, I'm very excited about what we're doing and what the possibilities are.
Yeah, we've got some great leadership in that area. I'm very excited to see what we can do there. Well, Chancellor, you've racked up a lot of points in your time here, but it's fourth and long, and I think we're going to punt it over to Chris McIntosh, if you don't mind.
That sounds good.
Thanks for being here tonight. I always appreciate you taking time to join us, and alumni certainly enjoy hearing from you. So have a great evening, Chancellor.
Thank you.
Great. Well, with that, our next guest, just in time, Chris McIntosh. Chris has been Deputy Athletic Director at the University of Wisconsin since 2017. And as you all know, is our new Athletic Director, just announced this summer after a national search. And I probably don't need to say this, but people know a lot about Mac. Chris was a left tackle for the Badgers, an All-American, all Big Ten, one of the most decorated players in Wisconsin football history, All-American Outland Trophy finalist, two-time captain at Badger Rose Bowl champions. And in addition to that, just an all-around great guy. Really, Chris, I can't say enough about what a quick and thoughtful study you are on the myriad complex issues that are bearing down on athletics. And I think that's the thing that really impressed people in the search process. You've come in and, as we discussed, as I told you, not your words, but, you came in, I think, on a mission to really dedicate yourself to having a great career in athletic administration, and you have just done a terrific job leading the shop over there, along with Coach Alvarez. And it's great to have you in this role at this time. So thanks for joining us tonight. And why don't you share your early thoughts about collegiate athletics, both at UW and on the national scene, and what's taking your time these days? Thanks,
Sure.
Chris.
Sounds good, Mike. Thanks for giving me the opportunity to be here tonight, and I'm very pleased to visit with you. Before I spend a few minutes just talking about the landscape and some of the opportunities and challenges that we've been dealing with, I'd like to start first with just a big thank you. This is the third appearance that I've made on this program, and I'm excited that the third time around we get to talk about all the opportunity that we'll be presented with this fall. But the first two times we're talking about all the challenges that athletics was dealing with. The Chancellor, hinted at some of those: empty stadiums and venues, and postponed or canceled seasons, and obviously the financial crisis that we were faced with. And many of the people viewing tonight's program stepped up and helped us with that, as just in terms of general support, or the vast majority of our season ticket holders deferred their tickets or even donated them to us. And we had an overwhelming amount of support through the Badger Legacy campaign and just philanthropic contributions to the department. And it's just a testament to the supporters that we have of our program, to our fans, and to the level of commitment that you've shown us. And so from me, from our department, to you, a big thank you for your support. It's been a bit of a quiet summer around Madison. In May, as Mike alluded to, we there was an announcement made in a transition of leadership from Barry to me. In June, the Supreme Court made a decision on the Alston case and questioned the authority, or challenged the authority, of the NC2A on the issue of educational reimbursement. In July, name, image, and likeness became effective in a very unconventional way. And in the period of time, in less than a week, we were forced to create our own policy on name, image, and likeness, having expected to have some form of national policy, consistent policy to deal with. And then in August, it's been all about conference realignment. And today was a big day on that front. And so I thought I'd just touch on a few of those points to begin with, as just examples of change. And change in college athletics is a common thing right now. College athletics has been a very stable platform, or sector, if you will, for a long time. And right now it's hard to find an area with solid footing. Many of you have been reading about name, image, and likeness on a national scale, our landscape, and also here in Madison. And I would tell you, in terms of what we're seeing here with our student athletes in Madison, it's been what I think is very positive and healthy and constructive. It's allowed some of our athletes to get creative and to leverage the opportunity to use their name for their benefit. I think we've seen some interesting partnerships, some healthy partnerships, but compared to what we notice at some places across the country, it's been very quiet here. And I think we're pleased with how it's developed so far. We're pleased with the approach our student athletes have taken on this topic, and we've been very happy about it. Some of you may have noticed today there was a landmark announcement, if you will, an alliance between the Big Ten, Pac-12, and the ACC. And I think much of the announcement and the conversation around that announcement focuses on football and football scheduling. But I think as importantly, or more importantly, really, it's an alliance between three like-minded conferences that put education at the forefront of the experience for our student athletes. And we're really excited, given the amount of uncertainty and the times we live in, to have two partners like the ACC and the Pac-12 shoulder to shoulder in this journey. So that's a lot of change, but I think, if I shift gears, there's so much that has stayed the same and that will stay the same. And I thought maybe I'd touch on a few of those. First and foremost, our approach, our priorities, given this change, will not change. That is, Wisconsin is a place where student athletes can come and obtain a world-class education and compete for championships in their sport. And there, in my estimation, are only a handful of places in the country where that is the case. And we will continue to put education from an institution like ours as the priority. We'll do it the right way, and we won't sacrifice. We won't cut corners like we always have. But we'll do it with the people that we have for many, many years said are our differentiator. And it is the people. We're not in this to win the facilities race. We're not in this to be the best NIL school out there. We're here to help young people, really, really talented young people, earn a degree and compete for championships and prepare them for life. And those are things that will not change. Also, one of the things that we're looking forward to is filling Camp Randall on September 4th. And we had this past Saturday a bit of a test run, if you will, in which a few thousand fans came into Camp Randall and watched our football team practice. And this was exciting, a little bit of a sneak peek, if you will. But keep in mind, there are now two classes of our football team, 40% of our football team, that have never played before fans in Camp Randall, have never experienced what it is that they signed on for when they were recruited to play in a venue like Camp Randall in one of the best college towns in the country. And we're looking forward to their ability to run out of the tunnel and hear the best fans in college football on September 4th against Penn State. I will tell you, though, one of the things that is changing about Camp Randall, and it's important to budget accordingly, is we're moving to a digital ticket. And we had a test run of it on Saturday. It largely went well, but it will take a little time, as it did in the Kohl Center when we installed metal detectors. It will take a little longer to get into Camp Randall. And so I'd encourage you to budget a little extra time to come early, especially for the first couple of games. Lastly, as we prepare for the fall, I would just say this, in talking to our student athletes, to our players in all of our sports, they couldn't be more excited to play in front of you, to show off what they have worked so hard to achieve, and I couldn't be more proud of them. Our student athletes, given the volatility of the last 18 months, have been examples for all of us in how they've taken a resilient approach to the twists and turns that have affected them, season cancellations and then restarts, testing protocols. Our volleyball team at the end of the season was taking 9 tests a week for COVID. That was viewed by them as a privilege, that they had access to that kind of testing. They could do what they wanted to do, and that is compete for a national championship. And so there is a buzz around our building, around our facilities, and the buzz is coming from our student athletes and their excitement and their anticipation to get out on the court and on the field and compete before the best fans in college. And with that, I'd be happy to take any questions you may have.
Chris, great remarks. I can't wait to go cheer on our teams, especially football and volleyball, which are kind of our big headline sports for the fall. But, I know we've got a lot of great athletes competing at UW, and it's great to hear those remarks from you. I mean, that is what it's all about, and they get a great education too. So people are wondering, what is the biggest logistical challenge that you see in welcoming fans back for the Penn State football game on September 4th? I mean, that's right around the corner, and what's on your mind? And I'll be honest, more on the risk side than the opportunity side. I know we'd love to beat Penn State, but what keeps you up at night thinking about that game?
Really, there are two factors that I worry the most about with that game, and I mentioned one of them. It's as simple as the move to a digital ticket. Badger Saturdays are, as we all know, about ritual and routine, and the digital ticket will become part of a new ritual and routine, but there's a bit of a learning curve, and I think it behooves us all to show up a few minutes earlier than we would have otherwise, and budget a little extra time there. On that note, I would love to see all of us show up a little earlier, just to cheer on our team through the warm up. And it's an early game, and so that doesn't necessarily make it easy, but it is something that they appreciate, especially now more than ever, given how long it's been since they've had fans in the stadium. But with regard to COVID, we will be recommending that fans wear masks in all parts of the venue, but they'll be required to inside. And, it's my hope that, our fans can take an approach that's consistent with how we're approaching this and how our coaches are approaching this and how our student athletes are approaching this. And that is an extreme amount of gratitude that we're able to play and that we're able to put fans into our venues and that we're able to cheer on and come together and unite and be Badger fans for a few hours. And I think, there's so much opinion and difference of opinion on the situation we're dealing in. And I respect that. But, Mike, you mentioned in the comments earlier, there's not a lot of bipartisan support for many things right now, but there is bipartisan support for being a Badger fan. And it's an opportunity together and to put aside the challenges of the world and to cheer on something that's near and dear to all of us.
One of the great things about working at this university is it is a bipartisan project, and I love being at the intersection of all that. I'm going to ask you a crazy question, so get ready. Much was made of the Badger men's basketball team last year having so much experience they were older on average than the Chicago Bulls starting lineup. Is our football team going to be older than the Bears?
I tell you what, I'm excited. I'm excited for both of our programs, but it's football time right now, and I think we've got a special team. We've got just the right mix of players with experience, and many of our players got experience that they potentially wouldn't have otherwise last year, given the kind of roster instability that we had during the COVID environment. And I think that'll pay dividends. But we've got some talented young players that we have attracted to our program and that have arrived on campus. And I think we've got a nice team. What I'm most encouraged about is this team's got a great chemistry and there's great leadership on this team. And, if we could stay healthy and if I think some of our players, all of our players really play up to their potential, I think it could be a special team.
Yeah, we've got some great veterans coming back. And I do want to talk about that. I mean, that was kind of a tongue-in-cheek question. I know Bears are older than us, but how does the fact that, people can come back for another year, does that have any, negative impact for some of the other players who maybe normally would be ascending to a starting role, but we've got other people coming back and they should be able to come back. I get it, but
it does. It introduces some unique challenges. You touched on one of those, the depth chart, obviously, and what that does to the chemistry of the locker room or of a specific position group. But, you know, and you actually touched on another issue, which is, you know, available scholarships to players. And there's, you know, there's exemptions made, one-time exemptions for just this senior class. But all of our student athletes have the ability to add an additional year of eligibility. But there's not an addition to the scholarship limits. And so, you know, that means somewhere in the pipeline, someone is going to lose out on an opportunity. And it might be somebody that's, you know, here in our program, but it might be somebody that could be here in our program in the future. And so I think that it presents a tricky situation for our coaches. And but I think, you know, potentially the largest or most significant issue there is, and I can relate from my own personal experience as a student athlete. You know, when I was getting through my 5th year as a student athlete, I mean, I was getting to the finish line in my own mind mentally, and I was ready to move on. I was finishing my degree. I had my sights set on that finish line. And, you know, I think many of our student athletes last year that were in a similar situation wanted to evaluate the experience that they had within this season and make a decision. And that's not an easy switch to flip. If you had your mindset on finishing up your eligibility and moving on with your life. And, you know, in the cases that we've had student athletes decide that they're going to move on, I think it just comes down to these personal decisions. And it does introduce complicated issues if someone is going to come back that really, in their own mind, they weren't planning to, and they're not prepared to. And that is another item on a long list of issues that COVID has presented to us.
Well, I'm excited about the team that's back. You know, I looked at the depth chart and I'm excited. You know, it could be a fantastic year for the Badgers, and you know, look forward to all the games we got coming up. Chris, do you know what will the situation be for the Spirit Squad and the band in Camp Randall? I know Coach Alvarez loved talking about these subjects. No, I don't know that was Barry's favorite issue, but it's a really integral part of game day. And I'm just curious, you know, what's going to go on with those groups?
Yeah, I think it will be largely business as usual for those. And I'll share this story with you, Mike. You know, it was a few weeks ago that we did a block party in Milwaukee at the Deer District. And I don't know, we had maybe 3,000 Badger fans show up on relatively short notice there. And it was the first, we brought a busload of student athletes down there. And it was the first time since our men's basketball team had returned as conference champions.
From Indiana.
Yeah, it was the first time since then they've been in front of fans. But, you know, we brought a bus full of student athletes down there, and there was also a bus full of band. The pep band came down. And it wasn't lost on anyone that was there that day or at Camp Randall on Saturday, because the same thing happened. The band was there. When you heard the band fire it up and start to play, it just brought back something special. It's hard to put your finger on what that is, but they are so much a part of our tradition and our experience, and they'll be front and center this year at Camp Randall like you would expect them to.
Great. That's good to hear. Are there some changes that the department made in response to COVID that will stay with you? You know, I certainly there are things in our organization that we had to learn to do differently on the fly. It was forced upon us, but now that we've done it, like this program, you know, we could be together, we could be in one space, we could have alumni in person, but we find it's more respectful to let people tune in as they wish to from the comfort of their own home. So, you know, we're changed. What will change in athletics as a result of the experience of the past year?
Yeah, I think in terms of our enterprise, if you will, in athletics, you know, we're in the same boat as everyone else. We're learning from this, and we're trying to optimize what our work environment might look like for our staff. And I think, you know, generally speaking, we believe that we're better when we're together and in person. And, I mentioned earlier, our differentiator is our people, but it has caused us to look at our staffing models and to try to provide flexibility that, we have, like many organizations, learned is appreciated by our staff. And, in many instances, allows them to be more productive. So we'll look at things like that. I do wonder how our recruiting efforts will adapt, given how heavily we've relied on calls like this, Zoom calls, and we have done very well recruiting through this period of time, and I could see us utilizing technology like this to better acquaint potential student athletes, recruits with our coaches, and I don't think it will be a substitute for getting out on the road and sitting down in living rooms and spending time to get to know these talented young people and their families, but I could see it supplementing those efforts.
Yeah, it must have been different recruiting when you're not in the living room with families and being able to see those interactions in a context. Sure,
Yeah.
That was a challenge.
Absolutely. I do think, we fared actually very well during this period in our recruiting efforts. And I don't know, it's anecdotal on my part, anecdotal observation, but I do think it played to our strength. And that is, as I mentioned before, the people we have in our coaches who are, they have an interest in getting to know these young people. And so, it kind of put everybody on a level playing field. There wasn't a lot of splash or pizzazz to it. It was good old fashioned sitting down and having a conversation and getting to know each other. And I think our people did a great job of that.
So, 30 plus years, Pat Richter and Barry Alvarez. When you think back, what do you think the enduring contributions are that really kind of built a strong athletic department foundation that Pat and Barry made? And then is there anything that you see that you want to add to that rich legacy?
Yeah, Mike, both of those people, Pat and Barry, have had just a profound impact on my life personally. I obviously, as a player for Barry and having worked for him for the last 7 years or so, but also as a student athlete under Pat's leadership as the athletic director, and obviously disproportionately affected by one particular hire that he made in Coach Alvarez. But they both hold a special place in my heart, and having grown up in Pewaukee, just down the road, and having an understanding of where the program was during the 80s, when I was kind of an impressionable future Badger, if you will, and understanding just how far we've come, I don't take it for granted. And the amount of support and the following that those two men have generated for our program, it can't be measured. More importantly, the opportunity that they have collectively provided for our student athletes over that 30 plus year period of time, and the amount of lives that has impacted. Family, think of all the families that have been impacted by that. It's impossible to measure, and that's what I get the most excited about. I've talked before about the impact that this experience has had on my own life and on my own family, and that's what gets me excited to come to work and to build and to grow from this incredible foundation that the two of them, Pat and Barry, have blessed us with and worked so hard to provide. But it's an incredible platform and foundation from which we can operate in, as we mentioned at the top of this call, dynamic times, historic times in college athletics. And I think we couldn't be positioned in a better way than we are right now to deal with those challenges. We've got a keen understanding of who we are and what's important to us, and it's those values that will guide us through these times. And I'm confident that there'll be opportunity in this for us, for our student athletes, and for Wisconsin.
Great. Yeah, it's about values and people and communication and alignment. And, we just keep doing it. Question from Hans Kuttner. Tell us, what is a non-revenue sport that's going to have a great year that we might not have on our radar, Chris?
Well, first and foremost, hi, Hans. Look forward to seeing you here this fall. Well, I mean, kind of fresh on my mind, I was in the field house on Saturday, and there were 4,000 Badger fans in the field house honoring our volleyball program and honoring what they had achieved last year, which was really, really quite thrilling, actually, that they were able to be recognized in an environment like that, given what they accomplished. And there's been a lot written about our volleyball program, and they have very, very high expectations. But I will tell you this, the red and white scrimmage, let's just say, the white team took it to them, and that is a deep roster with a lot of talent on it. But that's not exactly a secret. I'm excited to see Coach Wilkins' women's soccer team compete this fall. I think she runs a great program. And if you haven't had the opportunity to spend time with her, she's an incredible person. She's a dynamic leader, and she's got a group of women that are incredible. And the culture that she has in her program is really impressive. And so I'm excited to see what they do this fall. Obviously, for better or worse, it's become the expectation that Coach Johnson is going to assemble a championship women's hockey program, and so that's not exactly a sleeper either. But I think you'll be excited to see how our teams come out and compete in a way that they've really been yearning to over the last 2 years. It's a coming out party for our kids, and it's going to be exciting.
I think it's going to be a coming out party for our fans too. I think they're really excited too. And I can't wait to go into Camp Randall on September 4th. And I can't wait to go to a volleyball game. It's going to be a great fall. So, Chris, thank you for being here tonight. I know you've got a lot on your plate. It's not an easy time to come into a job like this with all the moving parts that, you really don't control. And I guess, the good news is I know you got great relationships with your colleagues, and the Big Ten will tackle many of these issues together. And, we'll keep doing things in the right way here at Wisconsin. So good luck to you. Thanks for joining us. And this time I had power through the whole episode. Not bad.
Yeah, thanks for having me on, and look forward to seeing everybody this fall on Wisconsin.
Great. Thanks, Chris. Well, we will be back in 2 weeks with something completely different. We will have John Peavyhouse, and we'll be talking with him and others about the geopolitical implications of the situation in Afghanistan. So join us on September 14th. It was great to have you with us tonight. Always great to hear from the Chancellor and from our new AD, Chris McIntosh. Thanks for being here, and on Wisconsin.
You can try, but you'll never stop a Badger. Because we Badgers are born with curious minds and endless heart. When we see a curve in the road, we speed up. When there are mask shortages for first responders, we make our own supply chain. When there's a world on pause, we sharpen our claws. Through thunder, fire, and pandemics, we'll keep going. Because after all, you can't stop a Badger.